The film opens with a dramatic scene featuring people falling from the sky, including Dan. As they land in the water, Dan emerges with a gun in hand, suggesting forthcoming conflict. The narrative then shifts to 28 years earlier, depicting a snowy Christmas Eve in 2022. Dan Forester is driving home, discussing his military background, education at Cal State, and his role as a high school biology teacher. He's hoping to snag a new job and is deep in conversation when he arrives home. Inside, he's looking for his daughter, Muri, when his wife, Emmy, asks for his help with the guests. Dan promises to join them after his call. He talks to Emmy about his dream job in a lab, and she reminds him about spending time with Muri later. Outside, Dan gets some bad news that dashes his hopes. Frustrated, he throws his papers and accidentally hits a mailbox. Back inside, Dan sits with Muri, trying to hide his feelings. Instead, he talks to her about her future, encouraging her to aim high and be different. Dan's had a successful career, from leading soldiers to studying at Cal State and teaching. But his outburst suggests he's also emotional and impulsive. Still, he's dedicated to his family and helping Muri succeed, even when things don't go as planned. As everyone settles in to watch a football game, a sudden commotion arises when smoke billows onto the field. Out of the smoke emerges bright lights and electricity, followed by people claiming to be from the year 2051. They deliver a chilling message about an alien invasion by creatures called White Spikes, pleading for assistance in the future war. Months pass, and the world scrambles to mobilize troops for the conflict. However, the toll is devastating, with only a fraction of soldiers returning from the future. Facing dwindling resources and growing protests against the war, governments resort to drafting civilians into the fight. Meanwhile, Dan is teaching his biology class, grappling with disengaged students and questions about the purpose of education in a world where the future seems predetermined. His reality shifts abruptly when he receives notice of his conscription. At a military assessment facility, Dan undergoes a harrowing procedure that confirms his fate. He is destined to die in 2030. With mounting doubts about the war effort and mistrust towards the authorities, Dan struggles to come to terms with his impending deployment. Later, confiding in his wife Emmy, they contemplate drastic measures to evade the government's grasp, seeking refuge with Dan's father for guidance in this uncertain future. Despite his reluctance, Dan is persuaded by Emmy to seek help from his estranged father for the sake of their family's well-being. He begrudgingly drives to the airfield where his father, James, works. Their interactions are tense, marked by unresolved resentment and distant exchanges. James reluctantly agrees to examine Dan's device, but their conversation quickly turns contentious. Dan's frustration boils over as he confronts James about his absence during his childhood, longing for his father's support and guidance. James, grappling with his demons from war, defends his decision to leave, insisting it was in the family's best interest. Their heated exchange leaves wounds unhealed as Dan storms off, vowing never to forgive his father. Returning home, Dan tries to reassure Emmy about his imminent deployment, but the looming separation casts a shadow over their conversation. He then breaks the news to Muri, who is devastated by the realization of his draft. Promising to return, Dan grapples with his fears and uncertainties, mirroring his father's struggles with wartime trauma. As Dan heads to the training facility, his strained relationship with his father resurfaces, marked by unresolved conflicts and shared history. His apprehension about joining the war mirrors his fear of repeating his father's mistakes and being separated from his family. At the facility, he joins a diverse group of inexperienced draftees under Lieutenant Hart's guidance, where they focus on basic survival skills rather than combat training. Dan forms a bond with Charlie, who shares his background in research and development. Among the new soldiers is Dorian, who's been in war 3 times before. He's known for being calm and good at planning. In a meeting, they talk about the time link, which is like 2 rafts on a river showing 2022 and 2051. Time only moves between these points, and they can't change it much. They have a lot of questions about the aliens, but Lieutenant Hart doesn't want to scare them, so he doesn't answer. Tension grows as Charlie and Dan talk about their mission before suddenly being told to leave. Even though they don't know much, they get ready to jump into the future in a hurry. Problems with the coordinates show how secretive the military is from 2051. Their secrecy and lack of training make it hard for the new soldiers to succeed in the war. Notably, only individuals are sent into the future. Basic survival training replaces comprehensive military preparation, exacerbating the challenges faced by the inexperienced draftees. Consideration of alternative strategies, such as preparing in the past, could potentially alter the course of the conflict. Sending many soldiers into a failing war seems like a waste of time and resources. It might be better to focus on making things stronger before the war starts. Knowing how the timeline works is very important. If there are fewer soldiers in 2022, it could be really bad when the aliens come. Dan comes back, falling to the ground with other draftees and seeing many of them die. Somehow, he lands in a rooftop pool and finds only a few people left alive. In the broken city of Miami, they meet up, having to deal with a tough situation. At the command center in 2051, urgency reigns as the Army colonel leads rescue efforts. Dan steps up, using his military knowledge, even though some doubt him at first. As they move through the damaged city, Dorian worries about involving civilians. But Dan is determined to finish their mission despite the challenges. Inside a research facility, they find important vials, but the danger is close. They hurry to finish before the bombs hit. With fighter jets getting ready to attack, they rush to complete their task, knowing time is running out. Amidst the chaos, the military's command structure collapses, leaving even the colonel powerless to stop the imminent bombings. The reasons behind the rushed airstrikes remain unclear, despite ongoing rescue efforts. Dan and his team navigate dangerous terrain, encountering a formidable white spike with deadly armor. Despite their bravery, casualties mount as they fight for survival. Dan takes a daring step, facing a white spike head-on and using unconventional tactics to fend off the attack. With Dorian's timely return, they devise a plan to exploit the creature's weaknesses, buying precious time amidst the chaos. Evading bombings, the team faces relentless assaults, with white spikes launching deadly projectiles. Enduring relentless bombardment, their survival instincts push them forward. As bombs continue to fall and time passes, Dan wakes up in a military base, facing the harsh reality of their situation. Reunited with Dorian, they realize they are the sole survivors of their team. Dan's determination to save his comrades clashes with Dorian's focus on personal survival. While Dan's intentions are noble, they may endanger their untrained companions. In a candid moment, Dorian reveals his terminal cancer diagnosis, adding a somber layer to their struggle. A chance encounter with the colonel overseeing operations reveals a surprising connection. She is Muri, Dan's daughter. Despite Dan's attempts at reconciliation, Muri remains distant, revealing the dire state of humanity's dwindling numbers and her pivotal role in combating the white spikes. Muri's revelation of humanity's bleak future underscores the gravity of their mission, yet she remains stoic and detached. Despite Dan's desire for closeness, Muri maintains her composure, hinting at a deeper purpose behind Dan's journey to the future, leaving him grappling with unanswered questions. Recruiters deliver a grim revelation to Dan. In their timeline, he meets his end in 2030, leaving his daughter Muri at 16. Despite Dan's attempts to reconcile, Muri withholds crucial details about his future purpose. Instead, she reveals the threat posed by female white spikes, essential to the hive's survival. Assigned to capture one, Dan and Muri embark on a perilous mission to a white spike nest. Muri recounts the swift devastation wrought by the creatures, evading detection and conquering the world in 3 years. Amidst the chaos, Dan confronts the haunting truth of his impending demise, but Muri urges him to leave their family's fate a mystery. As they face the ferocious female white spike, Dan's resolve is tested as he leaps into action to aid his daughter. They capture the female, revealing the future military's pursuit of a potent toxin. Dan grapples with conflicting duties to the future and his family, while doubts about the military's commitment linger. Muri's silence on her family adds tension, leading to a revealing confrontation about Dan's past. Her revelation shocks Dan, confronting him with the idea of his abandonment and tragic fate. Arriving at humanity's final refuge, Dan grapples with doubts about Muri's account, holding on to his steadfast devotion to family. Yet, the notion of alternate timelines raises questions about their shared past. Assisting Muri in her quest for a potent toxin, their bond deepens within the confines of the lab. Despite his unspoken pride in her achievements, their relationship remains strained. Seeking clarity on his purpose, Dan confronts Muri, leading to a revelation that shakes him to his core. The realization that the toxin is meant for the past challenges Dan's beliefs about fate and redemption. As the reality of Muri's plan sinks in, Dan grapples with disbelief, realizing she's asking him to alter the course of history and prevent the devastating war from ever occurring. With a solemn resolve, Dan agrees to carry the toxin back to the past, promising to return for Muri. Amidst the urgency of their mission, a breakthrough is achieved as the toxin is synthesized. Yet, their triumph is short-lived as the female white spike awakens. In a desperate race against time, Dan and Muri fight to safeguard the vial of toxin and ensure Dan's safe return to the past. Muri's revelation unveils a stark truth. The key to victory lies not in winning the war but in preventing its inception altogether. As they navigate the chaos, Dan and Muri confront the overwhelming odds, their path fraught with danger and sacrifice. With the facility besieged by white spikes, they fight valiantly, each step bringing them closer to their goal. Tragedy strikes as Muri is gravely wounded, her selfless sacrifice underscoring the depth of her commitment to the cause. In a moment of vulnerability, Muri expresses regret for her past harshness, finding solace in the fleeting moments of happiness shared with Dan. With the bridge collapsing and danger closing in, Dan's unwavering determination compels him to leap after Muri, plunging into the unknown depths of the white spike-infested pool. As the timeline activates, Dan is transported back to 2022. Returning to a shattered time link and a world overrun by the white spikes, Dan reunites with surviving comrades, notably Charlie. Haunted by his daughter's sacrifice, Dan faces the daunting challenge ahead. Encountering Muri alive stirs conflicting emotions, offering both comfort and a harsh reminder of the future's horrors. Dan shares his story with Emmy, wrestling with the sudden threat of the white spikes and the pressing need for action. Seeking clarity, he recruits the help of Dorian and Charlie, uncovering a surprising finding: the presence of Asian volcanic ash among the white spikes. To delve deeper, Dan remembers Martin, a former student knowledgeable about such matters. With Martin's expertise, they trace the anomaly to the Millennium eruption of 946 AD, unveiling a profound link between ancient geological events and the present crisis. A startling revelation emerges: the white spikes didn't dig down but rather emerged from beneath the ice, having lain dormant for eons. Dan and his companions approach the special forces, urging them to take action against the aliens. However, they are met with resistance from the head of the operation, who refuses to authorize any experimental procedures given the dire circumstances. Feeling hopeless, Dan remembers that his father has access to an airplane and might be willing to help. He explains to his father the danger his granddaughter, who is a colonel, is facing at the hands of the aliens. Convinced by his love for his granddaughter, Dan's father agrees to assist them. Together with Lieutenant Hart and a team armed with toxin copies, they arrive at the location where the aliens are dormant beneath the snow. Dan ventures underground to locate the aliens' chamber, realizing that they will soon awaken and pose a threat to humanity. Determined to prevent future attacks, Dan proposes using the toxins to eliminate the aliens. As they administer the toxins, the aliens awaken and begin attacking. Dan's friend suggests detonating explosives to eradicate them all. Dan's father and his friend stay outside to prevent the aliens from escaping, while Dan remains underground. When a large female alien threatens them, Dan uses the toxin to injure it, revealing its vulnerability. Seeing his father in danger, Dan realizes the depth of his father's love and sacrifice. In a daring move, his father lures the alien away, sacrificing himself to ensure Dan's safety. Overwhelmed by his father's love, Dan reflects on his feelings and regrets for leaving his family behind. As he emerges from underground, he witnesses the alien attacking his father and swiftly uses the toxin to eliminate it. With the threat neutralized, Dan and his team return home safely, where Dan's father joins them. They reunite with joy and make a promise to remain together, ensuring a happy ending and a safer future.